everything in the creation is just an expression of one fundamental energy. So we have the water which solidifies as ice. The ice may become water again. The water may evaporate as gas. They appear different from the outside, but it's the same energy, expressing itself from one form to another form. So everything in the universe is one basic cosmic energy. A, B, C, D, all the way down through the alphabet, but it's basically the same thing. So we had the tree. We broke down the tree. We made this table. We set this table on fire. It became ash. Again, same story, different form, one and the same energy. So if that is the case with everything in the creation, and if this seems reasonable, wouldn't it also be logical to say that your own mind is of the same cosmic energy? This mind must be of the same cosmic energy. So, what I'm suggesting is, maybe it sounds a bit too far-fetched. What I'm suggesting is, as a direct experience, if you come to know what is the original nature of your own intelligence, this is one and the same as having insight into the nature of matter itself, because these are not two separate things, these are one and the same. Now, isn't all human suffering and conflict created because of the sense of separation between yourself and the other? Doesn't matter what the other happens to be, but as long as our perception is limited to the ego, the very quality of the ego is such that it creates a very firm division in your mind. There's me, there's this body, there's my personality, all the various different identifications, my country, my religion, etc. And then there's everything else. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding, because this is simply not in the nature of the universe. If we had a flower that was growing in the garden, can we truly say that this flower is working as a separate, isolated entity? How many things is this flower dependent upon? From the sunlight to the soil to the atmosphere to the distance from the earth to the sun, to the conditions in the galaxy, the planets in the solar system, and all the geometry that's involved, going deeper than this, coming down to the very laws of the subatomic, atoms, electrons, protons. This is a huge explosion of activity, and all of this is involved in what? Just the existence of a single flower. We cannot conceive, even the simplest things in life, how much energy is involved in me just raising a single finger. It is an inconceivable amount of energy. So, if you were to pay your attention fully to anything in the creation, whether it's an ant crawling, whether it's a mountain, whether it's a tree, whether it's a flower, whether it's another human being, if you were to allow your attention to be absorbed into anything, but completely, nature has to reveal her secrets, because all of human knowledge has its roots in the power of observation. This is something that's so fundamental to understand. All the breakthroughs that have happened in modern science have its roots again in the power of observation. What does the astronomist do? He projects the energy of his attention to understanding what's happening in the canvas of the stars. What does the chemist do? Going into the laboratory with all the materials that are there in the laboratory, again, directs the power of his observation to understand the experiments that are happening in the laboratory. If we are to have insight into any dimension of life, whether it's external or whether it's happening within you, one must develop the power of observation. So, the yogi and the scientist are seeking exactly the same thing. One is seeking to have an understanding of the mysteries of creation when it comes to the external world. The yogi is also knocking on the door of the universe, but from within himself. Every human being, please let's look into this rationally. We may have different likes and dislikes, we may have different preferences of the mind, but every human being on this planet, and every creature on this planet, is fundamentally seeking his well-being. Right? Are we all in agreement on this? Every human being is seeking their well-being. Even a masochist or a serial murderer who's going around killing on a killing spree, even he's seeking his well-being. Maybe, and he's not doing it with the idea of creating more misery to himself, is he? Maybe his chosen way is not acceptable by the kind of society in which we live in, but still he's not doing any kind of action with the intention of creating more misery for himself. So whatever kind of desire that you have, after all, if we just look into it very deeply, there's only few basic desires. Please tell me if you can see any other kind of desires except these four. So we have desire for wealth, desire for knowledge, desire for power, and can you think of anything else? Desire for wealth, desire for power, desire for knowledge. Isn't much of our life also revolving around desire for pleasure? Other than these four basic desires, can you think of anything else of the millions of desires people are seeking? Just these four basic desires. So consciously, we may be seeking many things. What I am suggesting is unconsciously, there's only one basic desire, one root desire, which is for your own happiness and freedom. So, let's ask the question, let's be sensible. What is it which will bring enduring happiness and freedom? This is a fundamental question to ask if we are really sincere about addressing human well-being. Let's look into this. In a universe where everything is in a state of change, nothing will remain at rest even for a moment. Atoms are in a constant state of vibration. The solar system is in a constant state of activity, planets moving around the sun. The Milky Way galaxy is also in a state of motion. In fact, even space itself, do you all know this? That space itself is actually creative. Modern science today is talking about something called dark energy. We know that the universe is expanding. Not only is it expanding, it's expanding at an accelerated rate. Not because the galaxies are moving farther away from each other, not because the planets are moving farther away, but because space itself is expanding. Not even space will remain at rest even for a single moment. So here's the question. In a universe which is in a constant state of change, how is enduring happiness and freedom possible? So, if you observe what's happening in your inner experience, isn't everything also in a state of change? Nothing will remain at rest within you. Thoughts are constantly coming and going. Every 7 years, all the cells of your body have been regenerated. Nothing will remain at rest even for a moment. Seeing this reality, so how is enduring well-being possible? There's a very good reason why in yogic sciences we've always talked about non-attachment, non-attachment, non-attachment. Because, let's look into this. What is the root of attachment? Wouldn't you say it's coming from the sense of ego, the sense of I, being a limited identity? And much of our life is revolving around preserving this limited sense of I. Think of any time you've suffered in your life. Would it have been possible without the mind being clouded by egotism? It's simply not possible. So, out of ignorance of what is one's true nature, we create a false sense of self. In fact, this is the meaning of the word personality. Does anybody know what's the original meaning of personality? You've all heard the word persona? Probably. So persona, what does it literally mean? It's a Greek word. It literally means a mask. Our personality is exactly like a mask. In fact, you don't have just one personality. Just look at this. With one person, you show one kind of face, one kind of mask. With a friend, one kind of face, one kind of mask. With an enemy, another kind of face, another kind of mask. With a lover, another kind of face, another kind of mask. Actually, within you, you don't just have one personality. You have multiple personalities. When we enter into a dream, let's say in the dream you see the image of your mother. Actually, you know very well this is not your mother. It's just another aspect of your own consciousness. What does your mother represent to your mind? What is the association you've built in your mind about your mother? It's just a reflection of yourself. There's a condition in neuroscience. You know, there's the two brain hemispheres, and then there's a kind of bridge of fiber called the corpus callosum, which is connecting the two brain hemispheres. Sometimes people have epilepsy, and the epilepsy is so severe that the only way they can solve this problem, some surgeons, is to cut this cord that's connecting the left and the right brain hemisphere. Now, there are certain conditions where after the cord has been cut, the person actually starts developing two separate personalities. There was one case of one patient who the left side of his brain wanted to be a pilot. The right side of his brain wanted to be an artist. And these two parts of the brain were constantly fighting and quarreling with each other. They will actually have conversations. One hand will move, the other hand will raise it back down. The alien hand syndrome, they call it. Has anybody watched Dr. Strangelove? No? You've seen that scene? Like Dr. Strangelove. So you don't just have one personality. You have multiple personalities within you. I'll tell you a story. There was once a yogi. He was traveling through a forest. Getting tired of his travel, he sat under a tree, closed his eyes, went deep into meditation. In his meditation, he saw a man in the very depths of hell. So he became curious. What has this man done that has taken him to the very depths of hell? So he started investigating into the life of the man. He found that this man, one day he was walking, he happened to almost step on a spider. He reconsidered. A few moments of love, compassion had arisen in his heart. Okay, this spider, it's not any less or more important than any other form of life on the planet. Why should I kill this spider? So he prevented himself from killing the spider. So the yogi thought to himself, okay, just for those few moments of compassion, I don't care how the hell he has lived his life. Just for those moments of compassion, I think he should be taken out of the depths of hell. So what did he do? He created a spider thread. He took the spider thread, let it fall down to the deepest depth of hell. So the man was sitting there in the depth of hell. Suddenly he sees the spider thread has come. Finally there's a way out, and he's been in this hell for millions and millions of years. So he starts climbing the thread. As he was climbing higher and higher, he looked below him. There was all kinds of mad and demented beings desperately grasping onto the spider thread, also wanting to rise out of hell. He yelled at them. He said, "Just get off, this thread is mine." And in an instant, once again, he fell down to the deepest depth of hell. That's the problem of the ego. So, what I'm suggesting is, out of unawareness of what is your true nature, one creates a false identity. Out of this comes the desire for self-preservation. You want to preserve this sense of self. Once self-preservation comes, fear comes. Once there's fear, then there is attachment. Once there is attachment, then there is suffering. Can you see how all these things are interconnected? And what does it have its roots in? Basic, plain human ignorance.